The night sky above the human outpost was filled with smoke and broken stars. Ships moved like dark shadows against the red horizon, carrying soldiers, weapons, and secrets. Inside the command tent, Darius, a soldier with tired eyes, stood waiting for orders. He had fought in many battles, but tonight felt different, heavier, as if something unseen pressed on his chest. The commander entered, tall and cold, with steel in his voice. He placed a data chip on the table and looked straight at Darius. "Your mission is simple," he said, his voice sharp like a blade. "You will deliver the alien woman and her child to the black market. They will fetch a high price, and you will not ask questions." Darius felt his jaw tighten. He had heard rumors about these alien captives, refugees from a destroyed colony. Some said the woman was dangerous. Others said she was just a widow trying to protect her child. But all agreed the black market wanted them, and once sold, they would never be seen again. The guards dragged the prisoners into the tent. The alien woman was tall, her skin pale with a faint silver glow, her dark eyes filled with quiet strength. She held her child close, a small boy with the same glow in his skin. The child looked around with wide eyes, innocent and curious, not yet old enough to understand fear. For a moment, the woman's gaze met Darius's. There was no begging, no tears, only silent trust. It shook something inside him, something he thought the war had already killed. The commander slammed his fist on the table, breaking the silence. "Take them and move, soldier, do your duty." Darius saluted, but his hand trembled. He led the woman and her child out of the tent, the night wind cold against his face. The camp was loud with drunken laughter and engines roaring. But in the middle of that chaos, the woman walked with quiet dignity. Her child clutched her hand, small steps trying to match her pace. As they passed a group of soldiers, one sneered and spat. "Why waste time on these creatures? Sell them. Burn them. Who cares?" Darius said nothing, but his fist clenched. He guided them to a transport vehicle. The woman helped her child climb in, and she sat silently. Her presence was calm, yet her silence was louder than any scream. The road stretched ahead, dark and broken. Darius drove, while the engines hummed like a beast in pain. The boy sat in the back, his glowing eyes staring at the stars through a small window. After a long silence, the child asked, "Are you going to hurt us?" His voice was soft, but it cut deep into Darius's chest. He wanted to say no, but the order in his mind screamed yes. Instead, he only said, "Stay quiet and hold on." The woman finally spoke, her voice smooth, like water over stone. "You do not have to do this," she whispered. Darius glanced at her in the rear mirror, his jaw tight. "You don't understand. I follow orders. That is my life." She held her child closer and replied, "And yet, you still have a choice." Her words followed him like shadows as the vehicle moved deeper into the wasteland. Every mile felt heavier, every heartbeat louder. He remembered his own family, lost long ago in the flames of war. The child's small hands reminded him of his little brother. The mother's calm strength reminded him of his own mother's last embrace before the bombs fell. The night grew darker, stars hidden behind clouds of ash. At a checkpoint, mercenaries waited, their greedy eyes lighting up as they saw the woman and child. One of them grinned. "Looks like fresh trade, easy money." Darius felt his stomach twist, but he handed over the documents as ordered. The mercenary leaned close and whispered, "When they're gone, soldier, you'll forget them. Just another job." But Darius knew he would not forget. He could not. As the gates opened and the vehicle rolled forward, the child whispered again, this time more desperate, "Please don't leave us." The words echoed in his mind. He gripped the wheel tighter, sweat on his brow. For the first time in years, Darius felt something stronger than fear, stronger than orders. He felt the weight of a choice pressing down on him, a choice that would change everything. The road ahead split into two. One path led to the black market, filled with chains, darkness, and profit. The other led into the wild lands, dangerous, unknown, but free. Darius slowed the vehicle, his heart pounding like a drum. Behind him, the woman watched silently, the child's hand wrapped around hers. Their fate was in his hands now, and for the first time in his life, Darius was not sure if he would obey his orders. The vehicle rumbled across the broken land, its wheels crushing stone and ash under the weight of silence. Inside, Darius kept his eyes on the road, his hands steady on the wheel, but his mind was restless. The commander's words still echoed in his head, a sharp reminder of duty, yet the child's plea was louder, pressing against his heart with every mile. The alien woman sat in the back with her child close. Her silver glowed dim under the shadows of the cabin. She had not spoken since their last exchange, but her presence filled the air, a quiet strength that both comforted and unsettled Darius. The child shifted in his seat, curious eyes following the stars outside the window, every flicker of light reflected in his glowing pupils. "Where are we going?" the boy asked softly, his voice carrying innocence that pierced through the thick silence. Darius tightened his grip on the wheel. "To a place where you'll be safe," he said, though even he was not sure if that was true. The boy tilted his head, as if trying to read the truth in the soldier's voice, then leaned against his mother and closed his eyes. The night grew colder, wind howling through cracks in the land like voices of the dead. Darius drove past ruined towers, burned-out machines, and the skeletons of cities left behind by endless wars. Every shadow seemed to move, every light in the distance felt like a watchful eye. He knew mercenaries were everywhere, men who would sell their own blood for credits, and word of valuable alien captives traveled fast. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared behind them. Darius cursed under his breath, his soldier instincts alive. A hoverbike gang, 3 riders with glowing red visors, engines roaring like beasts, began closing in on the vehicle. The child stirred awake, fear flickering across his face. The mother placed a calming hand on his head, her eyes fixed on Darius, waiting to see what he would do. Darius slammed the accelerator, the engine roared, and the vehicle surged forward across the rocky ground. The gang fired warning shots, sparks bouncing off the armored frame. One rider drew closer, shouting through a comlink, "Hand them over, soldier, and we'll let you live." Darius's jaw hardened. "Not today," he muttered. He swerved sharply, sending dust and rocks into the air. The riders split to avoid the debris. Darius grabbed his sidearm and fired through the open window, hitting one bike's engine. The machine exploded into flames, throwing its rider into the dirt. The other 2 pressed harder, their weapons glowing hot, but Darius knew these roads better than them. He guided the vehicle into a narrow canyon, walls rising high and jagged, forcing the riders into single file. The mother leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. "If you keep driving like this, they'll catch us. You must use the terrain." Darius glanced at her, surprised at her steady tone, then nodded. He braked suddenly, the vehicle sliding sideways, dust clouding the canyon. The riders sped forward blindly, and Darius opened fire again, his bullets striking true. One bike crashed against the rocks. The last rider retreated, disappearing into the night, unwilling to fight alone. Silence returned, broken only by the heavy breaths of those inside the cabin. The child looked at Darius with wide eyes. "You saved us," he whispered. Darius shook his head, staring at the dark road ahead. "No, I only bought us time." The woman spoke again, her tone softer. "Time is all we need, soldier. Every choice you make changes more than you know." Her words lingered in the air like a riddle, heavy yet filled with hope. Darius tried to ignore them, but deep inside he felt something shift, a crack forming in the wall of duty he had built around himself. Hours passed as they moved through forgotten valleys. The stars above burned bright, free and endless. The child fell asleep again, small breaths steady, his hand still gripping his mother's robe. Darius found himself watching them in the mirror, the bond between mother and child strong and unshakable. It reminded him of what humanity had lost in war, the warmth of family, the innocence of love. Finally, they reached the edge of the wasteland, where the ground opened into a vast desert. In the distance, the lights of the trade hub flickered like a nest of fireflies, alive with greed and danger. Darius slowed the vehicle, his chest heavy with the weight of decision. Delivering them meant completing his mission, keeping his rank, his life, his loyalty. But something inside screamed that handing them over would be the same as killing them. The woman leaned forward once more, her eyes steady. You stand at a path where two roads split. Soldier, one will end your soul, the other will test your strength. Her words were not pleading, not begging, but a challenge. Darius met her gaze through the mirror, and for the first time, he saw not a prisoner, but a leader, a guardian of her child, a flame refusing to be crushed. The boy stirred, rubbing his eyes. Are we almost there? He asked sleepily. Darius stared at the glowing lights in the distance, his heart racing. Yes, he said quietly, we are almost there. But in his mind, he knew he was not talking about the trade hub. He was talking about the moment of truth, the moment where his choice would shape not only their fate, but his own. And as the vehicle rolled closer to the city of shadows, Darius felt the weight of destiny pressing harder than ever before. The trade hub rose out of the desert like a metal beast, its towers crooked and lit with dirty neon. Smoke poured from chimneys, and voices of countless traders, thieves, and mercenaries filled the air. The smell of oil and burnt food mixed with the sharp scent of danger. Darius drove the vehicle through the checkpoint, soldiers and guards scanning every corner with cold eyes. The woman pulled her child closer, her silver glow dimmed by fear, but her face still strong. The boy clutched her robe, whispering questions she could not answer. Darius kept his jaw tight, every muscle in his body tense. He knew what was supposed to happen here, and the thought made his chest heavy like iron. They parked near a loading bay where shadows moved with greedy hands. A man in a dark coat stepped forward, his smile wide, his eyes sharper than knives. "Welcome, soldier," he said smoothly. "I trust you've brought the cargo." Darius felt the words cut into him, reducing a mother and child into nothing more than property. The boy hid behind his mother, his small hand trembling. The woman met the buyer's gaze with silent defiance, refusing to bow or beg. The man chuckled, strong spirit, rare in these ones, worth even more credits. He gestured to his men, who stepped closer with chains ready. Darius's hand twitched near his weapon. Every instinct screamed to draw, to fight, to protect. But the voice of his commander rang louder in his mind, cold and unforgiving. Obey or be destroyed. The buyer leaned closer to Darius, his smile turning to a sneer. You hand them over. You walk away rich, respected, alive. His words were temptation, heavy with promise. But Darius felt his stomach twist, the weight of guilt already crushing him. The boy whispered, his voice soft but filled with fear, "Please, don't leave us." The words pierced deeper than any blade. Darius saw flashes of his little brother again, saw his mother's last look before the fire. He would not betray this child. The buyer snapped his fingers, chained them. The guard stepped forward, chains rattling, eyes hungry for cruelty. The boy cried out, clutching his mother. Darius moved without thinking, his gun out in an instant. A shot cracked through the air. One guard fell with a scream. The hub exploded into chaos, voices shouting, weapons drawn, alarms blaring. The woman shielded her child as Darius fired again, each shot precise, each movement fueled by rage. The buyer cursed, ducking behind crates. "You fool, do you know what you've done?" Darius shouted back, his voice a roar. "I know I've finally made the right choice." He grabbed the woman's arm, pulling her toward the vehicle. Bullets and energy blasts flew past them, striking walls, sparking fires. The boy stumbled, but Darius lifted him into his arms without hesitation. The mother ran beside him, her breath steady, her eyes blazing with determination. They reached the vehicle, engines roaring to life, tires skidding across the metal floor. Guards and mercenaries chased after them, shots tearing holes in the night. Darius slammed the accelerator. The vehicle burst through the gates, sparks flying as metal clashed. Behind them, the hub erupted in flames, chaos swallowing the trade zone. The boy clung to Darius's neck, whispering through tears, "You didn't leave us, you saved us." Darius's heart pounded, guilt and relief mixing like fire and ice. The woman's voice was calm but fierce. "You chose us over your orders. Now you will be hunted, by your own and by theirs." Darius nodded, sweat dripping from his brow. "Then let them come. I'll fight them all." The desert stretched ahead, endless and merciless. But for the first time, Darius felt his path was clear. He was no longer a soldier following commands. He was a protector, a shield, a man who had chosen life over death. Yet he knew the road ahead would not be easy. Already he could see patrol lights on the horizon. Already he could hear engines chasing. He had betrayed his commander, broken his oath, and placed himself against both armies. But as he glanced at the woman and child beside him, he knew there was no turning back. The woman placed her hand on his arm, her touch steady. "You are no longer bound by their chains, soldier. You are bound by something greater now." Darius looked at her, then at the boy, and he felt the truth settle deep within him. He was no longer just a soldier. He was their guardian, and the galaxy would soon learn that one human, when pushed by conscience, could be more dangerous than any army. The desert wind howled as the vehicle tore across the wasteland, sand spraying in violent arcs. Behind them, the trade hub still burned, a storm of fire and chaos spreading through the night. But there was no time to look back. Patrol sirens already wailed, and the distant hum of engines grew louder. Darius gritted his teeth, every instinct telling him the chase had only just begun. The woman sat beside him now, her child curled against her chest, eyes half closed with exhaustion. Her voice was calm, but edged with steel. "They will not stop, soldier. You have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed." Darius nodded, his hands tight on the wheel. "Then we keep moving until we find a way out." Her gaze lingered on him, as if measuring the weight of his words. Then she closed her eyes for a moment, whispering something in a language Darius did not understand. The first wave of pursuers appeared on the horizon, armored transports kicking up sand clouds. Darius slammed the accelerator, but he knew the ground vehicle would not last against their numbers. He needed something faster, something that could take them beyond the reach of soldiers and mercenaries. Up ahead, like a forgotten relic, a spaceport flickered with dying lights, its towers leaning, its landing pads cracked with age. Darius swerved toward it, the vehicle bouncing violently across broken ground. The boy stirred awake, fear flashing in his glowing eyes. "Are they going to catch us?" he asked. Darius glanced at him through the mirror, his voice steady. "Not if I can help it." The child held tighter to his mother, whispering, "He's not like the others, Mama. He's different." They reached the edge of the spaceport, the gates long abandoned, rust covering the walls like scars. Darius smashed the vehicle through the opening, sparks flying as metal bent under the force. Inside, the hangars were filled with silence and shadows, old ships covered in dust and forgotten tools. But one vessel, though scarred and battered, still hummed faintly with life, a small freighter with engines that looked ready to roar. "Go!" Darius shouted, leaping from the vehicle, pulling open the freighter's hatch. The woman hurried inside with her child, her movements quick and graceful despite her exhaustion. Darius climbed into the cockpit, his hands flying across switches and controls, praying the ship still had power. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then the engines coughed, sputtered, and roared to life, shaking the ground beneath them. The pursuers crashed through the gates, headlights blazing, weapons firing. Blasts struck the freighter's hull, sparks raining across the hangar. Darius pulled the throttle, the ship rising slowly, groaning under its own weight. Come on," he muttered through clenched teeth as bullets and energy bolts tore through the air. The freighter lifted, shaking, then broke free from the ground, engines screaming as it climbed into the night sky. The boy cried out in awe, pressed against the window, watching the desert shrink beneath them. The woman held him close, her eyes shining with relief, though her body remained tense. Darius kept his focus forward, knowing they had only escaped the first net, not the last. As the ship rose into the upper atmosphere, alarms blared. A squadron of patrol craft locked onto them, sleek and deadly, their lights flashing red like hunting eyes. The comm crackled, a cold voice filling the cockpit. Unidentified vessel. You are carrying stolen cargo. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Darius smirked bitterly. Cargo, is that all they see? He muttered, then switched the comm off, refusing to answer. The first shots came quick, streaks of plasma slicing through the dark sky. Darius spun the freighter hard to the right, the engines groaning as the ship rolled out of the way. The child cried out, but the mother's arms held him steady, her voice a calm anchor in the storm. Darius fired back, old cannons rattling as bolts of energy lit up the void. One patrol ship exploded, flames scattering like falling stars, but more closed in, faster and hungrier. Darius cursed, sweat dripping from his brow, his mind racing with tactics. The freighter was slow, but he knew how to use terrain, even in the sky. He dove low, skimming across the jagged cliffs, weaving between stone pillars that rose like the bones of giants. The patrol craft followed, but one struck the rocks and burst into fire. Another clipped a cliff, spiraling into the desert below. Darius pulled the freighter upward, breaking free of the canyon into the open blackness of space. Stars unfolded before them, vast and endless, like a door to freedom. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the hum of the ship and the child's soft breathing. The woman placed a hand on Darius's shoulder, her touch steady, her voice firm. You are no longer running, soldier. Now you are part of something greater, whether you know it or not. Darius looked at her, at the boy, then at the stars ahead. He did not speak, but deep inside he knew the path he had chosen could not be undone. Behind them, more ships began to emerge, the chase far from over. But for the first time, Darius felt something he had not felt in years. Not duty, not survival, but purpose. And that purpose was to protect the mother and child at any cost. The freighter drifted through the silent ocean of space, its engines running low to avoid detection. Stars glittered outside the windows, endless and cold. Yet inside the ship there was warmth, fragile but real. Darius sat in the cockpit, his eyes heavy but alert, hands resting on the controls, every sense awake for signs of pursuit. The mother and her child sat in the back, the glow of their skin faint in the dim lights, a quiet reminder that they did not belong to the cruelty of the market. For hours, no ships followed, only silence, only the steady hum of the freighter. The boy finally broke it, his voice soft. Will they find us again? Darius turned slightly, his tired face lit by the glow of the console. They will try, but I won't let them take you. The child's eyes widened, trust shining in them. Then you are like a protector. The woman smiled faintly at her son's words, her gaze moving to Darius. You saved us when you could have chosen the easier path, she said quietly. Why? Darius looked away, his jaw tightening, memories pressing against his mind like ghosts. Because I remember what it was like to lose everything. I couldn't let it happen to you. Her eyes softened. Though she said no more, her silence heavy with understanding. The boy crawled closer to Darius, curious. Tell me about your home. What was Earth like? Darius hesitated, his heart aching. It was blue skies and green fields, laughter in the streets, but war turned it into ash. The boy frowned. But you still carry it with you. I can hear it in your voice. For the first time in years, Darius felt his chest loosen, the child's words like a small flame in the darkness. He did not answer, but he did not need to. The bond forming between them was already growing strong. The woman wrapped her arms around her son, but her gaze lingered on Darius again, a question unspoken but clear. Would he keep protecting them even when the danger grew greater? The freighter shook suddenly, alarms blaring, pulling them all back to reality. Darius scanned the screen, cursing under his breath. Enemy signal, a warship, closing fast. The boy clutched his mother, fear returning to his glowing eyes. The woman held him steady, whispering in her tongue, her voice strong even as the ship trembled. Darius turned sharply, his voice firm. "Strap in, both of you, this won't be easy." The freighter's engines roared as he pushed the throttle, the stars streaking into lines as they moved. But the warship was faster, its shadow growing behind them, red lights flashing like the eyes of a predator. Blasts of energy struck the shields, rattling the entire vessel. The boy cried out, but the woman's arms were unshaken. "Stay calm. They will not break us," she whispered. Darius worked the controls with steady hands, his voice low. "We can't outrun them forever. We'll need to fight smart." He dived the freighter into an asteroid field, rocks spinning and crashing around them, the engines groaning with strain. The warship followed, its cannons firing, explosions lighting up the black sky. Inside the cockpit, the boy's small voice spoke again, trembling but brave. "You won't leave us, right?" Darius glanced at him, his face set. "I gave up everything so I wouldn't have to leave you. Remember that." The boy's fears softened into trust, his hand clutching the edge of his seat like a soldier holding his ground. The mother closed her eyes for a moment, whispering something that sounded like a prayer, though her tone was filled with power, not despair. Darius spun the freighter sharply, guiding it through narrow gaps, rocks scraping the hull, alarms screaming. One of the warship's escorts struck an asteroid and exploded, fire scattering into the void. But the main vessel pressed on, its size and power dwarfing the fragile freighter. Darius knew he could not win by force, but he could outthink them. He guided the ship lower, weaving it behind a massive asteroid, hiding in its shadow. The warship slowed, scanning the field, beams of red light cutting across the rocks. For a tense moment, the freighter held still, engines quiet, every breath inside the cabin heavy. The boy pressed his head into his mother's chest, Darius's finger hovering over the trigger, ready to move. Then, when the warship passed just above, Darius powered the engines to full. The freighter shot forward, bursting from the shadows, surprising the hunters. Before they could turn, Darius fired the rear cannons, striking the warship's engine bay. Explosions ripped through the ship's back, flames tearing across its metal body. The freighter darted away, vanishing into the dark sea of stars. Inside, the boy laughed through tears. "You beat them, you beat them." Darius allowed himself a rare smile, but it faded quickly. "We bought more time. That's all." The woman placed her hand on his arm again, steady and warm. "Time is all we need, protector." For a moment, their eyes met, human and alien, two worlds that should never have crossed, yet bound now by survival. Darius looked back at the stars, his heart heavy but steadier than before. The bond was real, strong, and unbreakable, and he knew one truth above all. He would rather die fighting than let this mother and child fall into the hands of monsters again. The silence after their escape did not last long. Darius knew it, the woman knew it, and even the boy could feel it. The freighter carried them through the stars like a wounded bird, but its scars grew deeper with every mile. Warning lights blinked across the console, fuel low, shields weak, weapons nearly drained. Darius sat in the cockpit, eyes sharp, hands steady on the controls. The woman stood beside him now, her hand resting lightly on the back of his chair. Her son slept against the wall, exhaustion finally winning, though his small fists were still clenched as if ready to fight. Darius glanced at the boy, then at the mother, and a thought passed through him like lightning. He was not only protecting them anymore, they were the reason he still breathed. The sensors beeped, harsh and merciless. Enemy ships closing fast, a full squadron this time, with a war cruiser at their head. The comm crackled, a familiar voice slithering through the speakers. It was the commander, the man Darius once saluted without question. "Traitor," the voice spat. "You will burn for this, hand over the aliens, and I may let you die quickly." Darius muted the comm, his jaw tight, his voice low. "Not today." The woman leaned closer, her voice calm but edged with fire. "You cannot face them alone." Darius shook his head, eyes never leaving the screen. "I was trained for battles like this, I'll buy you time." But the woman pressed her hand on his shoulder, her silver glow pulsing faintly. "You are not alone anymore, soldier." The cruisers unleashed their first volley, the sky exploding with fire. Darius threw the freighter into a roll, the ship groaning as energy bolts seared past. He fired back, the old cannons screaming, striking down one fighter but drawing the rest closer. The child woke with a cry, clutching his mother, eyes wide at the storm of light outside. "Stay with me," the woman whispered, shielding him with her body, her own eyes burning with strength. Darius pushed the freighter into a dive, weaving between asteroids, turning the rocks into shields. But the cruisers followed, their engines brighter, faster, hungrier. One blast struck the freighter's side, sparks showering the cockpit, alarms screaming louder. The boy shouted, "We're going to fall." Darius shook his head, voice sharp, "Not while I'm here." He slammed the throttle, pushing the freighter harder, skin peeling from his knuckles as he gripped the controls. The mother closed her eyes, whispering words in her tongue, her glow spreading faintly across the cabin like a shield of light. For a moment, the blasts bent around them, missing by inches. Darius glanced at her, shock in his eyes. "What are you doing?" She opened her eyes, her voice steady. "My people's gift, limited but strong enough to turn fate for a moment." Darius nodded, teeth clenched. "Then let's use it to live." He pulled the freighter upward, bursting from the asteroid field into open space. The enemy ships swarmed behind, like wolves chasing wounded prey. Darius targeted their formation, spinning the freighter into a sharp turn, firing with everything left. Explosions lit the void, two ships torn apart, debris scattering like sparks in the night. But the cruiser still loomed, massive and relentless, its cannons glowing with the fire of death. The commander's voice returned, cold and merciless. "You can't win, Darius. You are one man against an empire." Darius growled, sweat burning his eyes. "Then let the empire bleed, trying to stop me." He fired again, weaving, dodging, the freighter dancing between death and destiny. The child's voice rose above the chaos, small but steady. "You won't let them take us, right?" Darius turned, his eyes fierce. "I will die before I let them touch you." The boy nodded, his fear melting into trust once again. The mother's hand tightened on Darius's shoulder, her voice a whisper meant only for him. "You fight like one of us, not like them." The cruiser unleashed its final strike, beams of energy slicing across the stars. Darius pulled hard, engines screaming, hull tearing, but the freighter slipped through the fire. He aimed at the cruiser's weak point, its exposed vent near the engines. With one last burst of power, he fired, the cannons roaring with everything they had left. The shot struck true, fire exploding across the cruiser's back, tearing through metal. The giant vessel shook, flames consuming its heart, its weapons silenced. The fighters scattered, their formation broken, their hunt ending in fear. The freighter drifted clear, wounded but alive, the stars opening before them once more. Inside, the boy cried with relief, clinging to his mother, whispering, "We're safe." Darius leaned back, every muscle trembling, his chest heavy but unbroken. The mother met his gaze, her eyes glowing faintly. "No, not safe, but free, and freedom is worth every scar." Darius looked at her, then at the boy, and finally at the stars. And for the first time in his life, he believed her. The freighter floated through the endless sea of stars, its hull scarred, its engines weak, but its spirit unbroken. Inside, silence filled the cabin, broken only by the soft hum of failing systems, and the steady breaths of 3 survivors. Darius sat in the cockpit, his body exhausted, his hands trembling, yet his eyes still sharp. He had fought, he had bled, and he had chosen, and though enemies still lingered in the galaxy, for this moment, they were free. The boy sat beside his mother, his glowing eyes wide with wonder, staring at the stars beyond the glass. He whispered softly, "We made it," as if afraid that speaking too loud might break the fragile peace. The mother placed her hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle yet strong. "Yes, my son, we are alive because of him." Her gaze shifted to Darius, steady and deep, holding more than gratitude, holding respect. Darius turned, his voice low. "Where do you want to go? Anywhere in the galaxy. I'll take you there." The woman studied him, then spoke with quiet certainty. "There is only one place, the last safe haven of my people. If we reach it, my son will be among his own. He will not grow up in chains." Her words struck Darius like a blade, reminding him of why he had chosen this path. He nodded slowly. "Then that's where we'll go, no matter what stands in the way." Hours turned to days as the freighter limped through the black, avoiding patrol routes and hidden satellites. Darius repaired what he could, his hands raw from work, but the ship was old and every fix was temporary. The boy followed him often, asking questions. "Why do you fight? Why do you protect us when it puts you in danger?" Darius paused one evening, looking at the boy's innocent eyes. "Because once I lost someone I should have protected, I won't let it happen again." The child nodded, as if the answer was enough, his trust unshaken, his bond with Darius stronger than words. The woman watched these moments quietly, her expression unreadable, but when she spoke, her voice carried weight. "You are not only a soldier anymore, Darius. You are a guardian, one who has chosen a path of honor, though it costs you everything." Darius looked at her, his tired eyes softening. "Then maybe that's who I was meant to be all along." Finally, after endless silence and fear, the scanners picked up signals ahead. A fleet of alien ships appeared, sleek and glowing with silver light, carrying the crest of her people. The boy cried out in joy, pressing against the window. "It's them, it's our people." The woman's eyes filled with tears she had hidden for so long. "Yes, we are home." The fleet surrounded the freighter, weapons aimed but not fired, their comms opening with sharp voices. "Identify yourself. Human, why do you carry one of our royal line?" Darius stood, his voice firm. "I am Darius, once a soldier of men, now a protector. I chose to guard this woman and her child instead of selling them. If you must kill me, so be it, but they are safe." There was silence. Then a new voice spoke, one filled with awe and relief. "Return the queen and the heir, and you will not be harmed, human." The woman turned to Darius, her eyes soft, her voice heavy with meaning. "It is time, protector, my people will take us now." The boy's face fell, fear flashing in his eyes. "But what about him, Mama? He can't leave." Darius knelt before the child, his hand resting on the boy's shoulder, his voice steady. "I was never meant to stay. Your people need you. Your mother needs you. And I will always be with you here," he tapped the boy's chest, "in your heart." Tears filled the child's glowing eyes, but he nodded bravely. "I'll remember, always." The mother touched Darius's arm, her voice trembling with rare softness. "You saved more than just us. You saved hope itself. And for that, my people will honor you." The freighter's hatch opened, silver light flooding inside as the alien guard stepped forward. They took the woman and child gently, bowing their heads in respect to her. The boy turned one last time, lifting his small hand in a salute, his voice clear, "Goodbye, protector." Darius raised his own hand, his throat tight, unable to speak. The hatch closed, silence returned, and the freighter drifted alone once more. Darius sat back in the cockpit, staring at the stars, his heart heavy but alive. He had no home, no army, no place in the galaxy. But he had purpose, a choice fulfilled, and that was more powerful than any command. As the alien fleet carried the mother and child to safety, Darius's freighter turned slowly into the dark. One man against an empire, a soldier no more, but a protector forever.